Another country that is a little underrated is Armenia, where home of the Kardashians. Which, funny enough, no one that we saw in Armenia looked anything like the Kardashians. But I feel like maybe in Georgia, the people in Georgia looked more like the Kardashians than the Armenians. But nonetheless, it's a very quiet, underrated country. And we stayed in Yerevan, and from there we did like a day tour to Lake Savan, and that in and of itself was amazing. We did like what they call the Switzerland of Armenia, and pretty much it's just, it's just this breathtaking hill, kind of like, the videos that you see from of Switzerland, and it's just like green pasture, and it was just so beautiful. The food was a little bit not as great as Georgia, but very similar food. I just think with Armenia, the food was not as like seasoned as well as Georgia, but it's the same food. It's the same food. I know there's obviously there are some differences because they're different nations and they have their own different interpretations of and expression of things, but the food is very, very similar. The same kind of food we got in Georgia are very similar to the same dishes as we got in Armenia. So, but I would recommend Armenia. I love going to these like underrated countries because like you just see so much before it becomes too commercialized, right? You just get a different feeling, you just get a different experience, and I just love going to these kind of countries. I would recommend Armenia. They talk a lot about, Mount Ararat, which is where Noah's Ark landed after the flood, but now it's not theirs. Turkey actually owns Mount Ararat now, and also there's this whole thing of like the Armenian genocide, and so they do have beef with Turkey and with Azerbaijan. And even now, so this is a tip: if you're going to Armenia, and you're going to you can't go from Armenia to Azerbaijan because they're at war with each other over like a region of Armenia, and so the borders are closed, and so you have to go through Georgia if you want to go to Azerbaijan. You can't go straight from Armenia to Azerbaijan. And then when you're doing the visa to Azerbaijan, they're going to ask you, oh, you came from Armenia, did you go to this specific location? Obviously we didn't go to that location because it's a war zone, and we're not doing that. So they want to make sure that you are not. It's kind of like similar to like if you go to Cuba and you're coming back to the US and they're going to ask you a bunch of questions and stuff like that, and like, so just be mindful that they still have a war going on, at least when we were there, over a region. And so just be mindful to make sure that you don't go to that region. I forgot what the region is called. I'm gonna do a little bit of research and post it on the screen, and then you can like just know to avoid it at all costs. Also, there was no more so from Armenia to Georgia, we took a bus. We were thinking of taking a train, but like we weren't sure how that was going to work out, so we took like a bus, and it was like an all-day thing. But then from Georgia to Azerbaijan, there was no more land transportation between those countries, but you can from Georgia fly to Azerbaijan. However, because of COVID, Azerbaijan closed all of its borders, and so you can't go by train or by bus from Georgia to Azerbaijan. So just be mindful of that, and just be mindful of the war between Armenia and Azerbaijan, so you're not like going into the war region and you're just staying in Yerevan or other places.